This is the latest rebuild of my Bachmann Class 08 diesel shunter. I bought it about 20 years ago and it has been pretty much a nightmare P4ing it ever since. It was the first loco that I P4'd and I didn't realise it was going to give me so much trouble. The problem is that I love the 08 diesel shunter and I like these particular colours. So it's one of the original ones that came out. I originally converted it using Allen Gibson wheels. There were quite a few issues involved. Obviously with Allen Gibson wheels, the quartering, and the Bachmann original locos had the pickups from the top, I think it was, but in an unusual place. And that caused a lot of problems. And of course DCC was in its infancy, and I think when I first built it I didn't have a chip involved. Anyway, several rebuilds later I had ultra scale wheels and I had a Locksound Micro 3.5 chip with a Lego Man Biffo sound file. I discovered from the forums that the problem with this original 08, which I didn't know was a problem, was in fact the coupling rods of the manufacturer. Now of course, doing the conversions myself, I always blame myself. If things don't go right, I must have done something wrong. I didn't realise that the manufacturer was at fault on this. I had some replacement Bachmann rods eventually, and that seemed to improve the situation. Although I can't remember in fact if I used Hornby ones, but I'm sure it was Bachmann. Anyway, I got it sorted, but it was never a perfect runner, and it's been a little bit of a disappointment, so it's been on the back shelf. The Hornby model, which I showed in earlier videos, there's never been any problems with. So this was time for yet another rebuild, and this is what you're going to see. I have decided, and I've put it off for a long time, and I've had them in stock for a long time, to use the Brassmasters coupling rods. This consists of 34 bits of metal to solder together, and the instructions weren't much help. Obviously it's aimed at the experienced modeller, but I've done it all. I have taken the opportunity to sort out two other problems that it had. One was the couplings, and the couplings I had in NEM sockets with Kadees, and as it is a problem with all of these NEM sockets, that they all seem to be different and not standard, and there's always a lot of droop with the Kadees. The only manufacturer that seems to have got it perfectly right is Scale, but everybody else, you really need to take the NEMs off and just start from scratch again. But of course you want to start hacking away at a very expensive model. The other problem was that there was, because it was a very early model, was no space, well really for the speaker, but the speaker I managed to put inside the cab, but then there was certainly no space for any capacitor stay alive, and without that on a shunter it's not really going to work very well, particularly with the sound, because when it stops the sound wants to start all over again. I thought I would take the opportunity to try one of these new Hornby HM7000 chips with the capacitor, and I would change the speaker to Roads and Rail speaker. So here I am testing the locomotive chassis with the new coupling rods, and I'm looking for tight spots, and by using my finger I can feel for the tight spots, and I'm checking as it goes through various bits of track work to make sure that all 6 wheels remain on the track so that it's nice and square. from the feel, I can feel that there are no tight spots. It is very pleasing. And as you can see, it's running quite sweetly. With that test completed, I cut off the 14 BA bolts so that the nuts are flush and repainted it in the yellow colour. But of course the yellow paint will mean that it could clog up, so it's now another whole series of tests to check for free running. But now with the paint dry, I can oil it all up. And as you can see, I'm quite pleased with the result. It's quite free running. So on my Bachmann 08, which I've now got the new coupling rods on, and I've just now put new 3-link couplings in, and I just wanted to show you how I did them. Notice that they are sprung. The buffers of course are sprung in this case, but on the cement wagon it's not sprung. So when it goes round corners, notice at the moment that the buffers are touching, then because of the spring, there's this amount of give in it, quite a lot, and then a compression of the buffers as well. Just thought I might show you that. Both sides are sprung. So there's plenty of distance that can be made. So the gap between the vehicles can be increased on curbs because of A, the sprung buffers, and secondly the sprung couplings. So if on a tight curve, I'll move it like that, so the buffer has squashed, but also now the coupling has increased because of the spring, you see, and yet we're still keeping it in touching buffers. It's a right fiddly job to do it, but there we are, that's what I do. Here again I'll show the couplings. And the springing effect. For close coupling. Here is the Bachmann 08 now fitted with a Kadee coupling at the front. There is also one at the back, but just to see how it operates, it is very important to use the height gauge to make sure that it couples spot on like that. And there we are, it's coupled. Also, of course, we've got the sprung 3-link type coupling, but on most of the 08 shunters it was screw link. I have just put in 1 link so that it doesn't interfere with the Kadee coupling. So on the Kadee coupling, it's nice and free. and then when it moves in, spot on. It's spot on. There we go, virtually spot on. Click, and there we are. And now I have put the motor back in with its cradle. I have put the pickups back on with new pickup wires using 12 gauge steel guitar wire, and as it's DCC I have used the old original Lock Sound Micro 3.5 with Lego Man Biffo sound, and it's got a 100 ohm speaker which I've just measured. In fact it's about 70 ohms. The sound at this stage is not important, but you can get some idea of what I used to have. However, the sound, bear in mind that it was in an enclosed cab and it sounded a lot better than it sounds on this video, but this is purely for test purposes to make sure that the locomotive is running smoothly. Now when you listen to the next video, when I put the HM7000 and the Road and Rails speaker in, now that is a real, in my mind, it's a real ear opener and very much what I wanted to achieve.